Strange Skies and Shifting Shadows, The Grim Britannia Casebook, Volume 1. Some stories cling to us long after they're told. A flicker of doubt, a chill that lingers, a whisper that says the world is not as ordinary as we like to believe. Across the towns, moors and coastlines of the United Kingdom, mysteries take root. They are retold in pubs and passed down in families, woven into the fabric of our landscapes until fact and folklore blur together. This book began as a podcast, a chance to explore some of Britain's most intriguing unsolved mysteries. From strange lights in the sky to vanished men, haunted houses to entire stretches of countryside steeped in unease, each episode set out to capture both the history and the enduring sense of the uncanny that clings to these tales. Collected here, the stories form something different. Read together, they reveal patterns, how ordinary lives collide with the inexplicable, how mystery resists tidy explanation, and how the unknown remains part of our national imagination. These aren't simply curiosities of the past. They are living stories, reshaped every time they are retold. Whether you are returning to these stories after listening to the podcast or discovering them for the first time, I invite you to treat them as more than puzzles. They are glimpses into the strange corners of our history, reminders that even in an age of reason and technology, mystery endures. Turn the page and step into a Britain where history, mystery, and imagination meet. The British Scareship invasion of 1909. It began in the early months of 1909. The first reports came from the night sky above London. Witnesses described a dark, cigar-shaped craft gliding silently over the city, its bright searchlights scanning the streets below. Some swore they heard a faint humming sound as it passed overhead. One man, a night watchman near Blackfriars Bridge, later recounted the strange sensation that accompanied the noise, a deep, resonant vibration that seemed to pass through his very bones, leaving a lingering unease. Others claimed it moved in an unnatural way, hovering without wings or propellers, unlike anything known to exist at the time. Another witness, an off-duty constable in Hampstead Heath, described how the craft seemed to tilt and slide rather than turn, shifting at odd angles in ways no conventional aircraft could replicate. At first, these reports were dismissed. The British government and military outright denied any knowledge of these aircraft, with officials insisting that no such technology existed. Leading engineers of the time rejected the idea as impossible, arguing that even the most advanced airships could not perform the maneuvers described by witnesses. Some newspapers treated the reports with skepticism, suggesting that people were simply mistaking Venus, meteors, or other celestial objects for mysterious craft. The technology required for such a machine was, as far as the public knew, beyond the reach of British or foreign engineers. But the sightings continued. As the weeks went on, similar accounts emerged from South Wales, the Midlands, and even as far north as Scotland. In Birmingham, a police officer claimed he saw an airship descending low enough that he could make out two figures within it. In Peterborough, a group of railway workers described a massive structure, eerily silent, hovering above the tracks before vanishing into the night. One worker later gave a detailed statement, claiming the object had a row of dim, flickering lights along its underside and moved with an unnatural smoothness. Another recalled feeling an odd static charge in the air as it passed, as if the atmosphere itself had changed. The men stood frozen, watching as the object loomed over them before it shot skyward at an impossible speed, leaving behind only a faint hum that faded into the night. In 1909, Airship technology was still in its infancy. The German Zeppelin program had made some advancements, but nothing capable of crossing the English Channel undetected, let alone maneuvering in the way witnesses described. The British military denied any knowledge of such crafts. If the Scareships were real, then who or what was controlling them? At the time, explanations ranged from the plausible to the bizarre. Some insisted they were early prototypes from Britain's own secret aviation programs, their existence known only to a handful of officials. Others feared the ships were German reconnaissance vehicles, quietly mapping the British Isles in preparation for war. A few believed the airships were the work of wealthy inventors, private individuals testing radical new flying machines under cover of darkness. Then there were those who saw a more supernatural angle, speculating that the crafts were ghostly manifestations, echoes of an unknown future, or even visitors from beyond the stars. In a time when aviation was still a fragile dream, such theories blurred the line between science and speculation. These theories soon turned to panic as news media fanned the flames of speculation. Stories of German reconnaissance, covert aviation prototypes, and extraterrestrial contact littered the newspapers. At the time, the idea of visitors from other planets was largely confined to science fiction and spiritualist circles, yet some believed there was mounting evidence that these craft were not of this Earth. Their silent movement, unnatural speed, and apparent ability to defy known physics were considered glimpses of an intelligence far beyond human comprehension. Could these have been early encounters with what we now call UFOs? If so, why were they only seen in 1909? And why did they vanish just as quickly as they appeared? The mystery deepened when reports of men dressed in unusual clothing began surfacing. In some cases, witnesses described figures emerging from the landed airships, their attire unfamiliar and their accents strange. One particularly chilling account came from a man in Caerphilly, Wales, who claimed he saw an airship land in a remote field late one evening. He described two figures stepping out, wearing long, dark coats and speaking in a language he could not recognize. When they noticed him, they hurried back into the craft, which then rose silently into the sky before vanishing at an impossible speed. Were these early test pilots, unknown foreign agents, or something else entirely? Then, just as quickly as it began, the Scareship invasion ended. The sightings ceased, the newspapers moved on, and history, ever forgetful, allowed the mystery to fade into obscurity. But one of the final reports was perhaps the most unsettling of all. In the quiet countryside near Norfolk, a farmer and his son reported seeing a massive, elongated craft descending into a mist-covered field just before dawn. The farmer approached cautiously, describing an eerie, low-frequency hum that made his skin prickle. As he neared, the ship rose abruptly, kicking up a whirlwind of dust and broken branches before vanishing into the sky. The father and son never forgot what they saw. But as the days passed and no further reports emerged, their story, like so many others, faded into the background of history. But what were they? If they were airships, why were no wrecks or evidence ever found? If they were secret technology, why did no military records ever emerge? And if they were something beyond human understanding, what was their purpose? Modern theories offer some possible answers. Some historians suggest that the Scareships were misidentified early aircraft, experimental prototypes built by private inventors or military groups who left no official record of their work. Others propose that the sightings were a combination of mass hysteria and optical illusions, common atmospheric conditions creating the illusion of large, silent objects in the sky. Could the Scareships have been the product of the era's fascination with flight, fueled by speculation and exaggerated reports? Or does their sudden disappearance suggest something more deliberate, something we were never meant to understand? The British Scareship invasion of 1909 remains one of the strangest unsolved aerial mysteries in British history, a fleeting glimpse into a sky that even now holds secrets we have yet to uncover. Perhaps one day the truth will reveal itself. Until then, the Scareships remain a ghostly enigma in the night sky. The Berwyn Mountains UFO Incident. The date was January 23, 1974. The setting, Llandrio, a quiet Welsh village nestled near the Berwyn Mountains. At approximately 8:30 p.m., the stillness of a cold winter evening was shattered by a deafening noise, followed by the earth itself trembling beneath residents' feet. Windows rattled in their frames, ornaments crashed from shelves, lights flickered and dogs howled into the night. But that wasn't all. A streak of brilliant white light was seen crossing the sky, burning bright enough to be visible for miles. Those who witnessed it said it resembled a fireball, trailing sparks as it descended over the mountains. Then came the impact. A low, resonant boom. Some described it as an explosion, others as the roar of something tearing through the air before smashing into the earth. Naturally, many feared a plane had crashed in the hills. Locals rushed outside to look for signs of wreckage. Some even set off across the rough terrain, desperate to help. Among them was Patricia Evans, a nurse who lived nearby. She was convinced an aircraft had gone down and expected to find injured passengers in need of aid. But what she saw instead was unlike anything she'd ever encountered. Evans later described a large glowing light on the side of the mountain. A sphere, she said, bright orange in color, emitting pulses like a heartbeat. It did not flicker like fire or headlights. It seemed structured, artificial. The light, according to her, wasn't just glowing, it was alive. Then, slowly, it began to dim, and eventually vanished entirely. The following morning, the military arrived. Helicopters buzzed overhead. Convoys were spotted navigating the narrow rural roads. Men in uniform were seen combing the hills. And then, nothing. No announcement, no explanation. No official record of a crash or recovery operation. The Ministry of Defense issued a statement soon after. Their conclusion? The events of the night before were caused by an unusual coincidence. A meteor breaking up in the atmosphere and a small earthquake occurring simultaneously. Both, they said, were natural phenomena. There was nothing to worry about. But in Llandrio, many were unconvinced. Why, they asked, was the response so swift? Why had the military sealed off parts of the area if nothing had happened? And why were local police reportedly told not to approach certain zones? Eyewitness accounts began to circulate. People who had seen far more than just lights in the sky. Some described circular objects hovering low above the ground. Others spoke of seeing strange figures on the hills that night. Some claimed they were wearing unusual suits. Others said they moved in a way that was not quite human. As time passed, theories multiplied. One of the most enduring is that of a UFO crash, an extraterrestrial craft brought down, whether by accident or design, in the hills of North Wales. Advocates of this theory point to the rapid military presence and the strange behavior of the authorities. If it were simply a meteor and a tremor, they argue, why such secrecy? Decades later, this theory would gain more traction following the release of declassified Ministry of Defense files, which revealed that the government had, in fact, been monitoring UFO activity closely throughout the 1970s. Contrary to their public dismissals, Internal documents showed an active interest in unexplained aerial phenomena. Reports were logged, patterns were analyzed, and occasionally, things were quietly buried. In one file, officials noted unusual sightings in the region around the time of the Berwyn incident, but concluded that no further investigation was necessary. Convenient, some thought. Too convenient. And then there are the whistleblowers. In the years that followed, several individuals came forward claiming insider knowledge of the event. One such figure alleged that a metallic object had indeed been retrieved from the mountainside and taken to a secure facility in southern England. Others claimed that bodies had been found at the site, not human, not military. Another story surfaced about a local farmer who allegedly discovered shards of strange materials scattered among the rocks. He described them as metallic, lightweight, and resistant to heat. But before he could share them with the press, he was visited, so the story goes, by men in dark suits who confiscated everything and warned him to stay silent. To many, these tales echo the familiar themes of Roswell, the infamous 1947 crash in New Mexico. Indeed, the Berwyn Mountains incident has been dubbed the Welsh Roswell, a parallel event steeped in government denials, cover-up accusations, and the enduring sense that something extraordinary was concealed from the public. Skeptics, of course, take a different view. They point to the British Geological Survey, which confirmed that a minor earthquake, registering around 3.5 on the Richter scale, occurred in the region on the very night in question. Meteors, too, were visible across the UK that evening. Combined, they argue, these two natural events created the perfect illusion. The tremor explained the shaking, the meteor explained the light, and the rest, well, the rest was imagination. Mass hysteria, they say. A rural community shocked by rare natural events, filling in the blanks with folklore and fear. But that explanation has never quite satisfied everyone. There are too many oddities, too many conflicting reports, too many silences where answers should be. Today, the Berwyn Mountains remain a place of mystery. Hikers still report strange lights flickering above the hills. Amateur UFO investigators frequently visit, armed with cameras and Geiger counters. Some claim the area emits unusual levels of radiation. Others speak of an uneasy atmosphere, particularly around the supposed impact site. Over 50 years have passed, but for many the questions still burn. What really happened that night? Was it simply a meteor and an earthquake, an incredible coincidence and nothing more? Or was it the night something fell from the stars, and those in power chose to look the other way, or look too closely, and then hide what they found? The Eilean Lighthouse Mystery. The Flannan Isles consist of 7 small islets. The largest among them, Eilean Moor, was chosen as the site for a vital lighthouse, constructed to guard ships against the treacherous Atlantic waters. With cliffs rising sharply from the sea and weather that can turn murderous within minutes, these waters had claimed countless vessels by the 19th century. To combat this hazard, the Eilean Lighthouse was completed in 1899 after 4 years of challenging construction. Standing 75 feet tall, the tower was fitted with a powerful light capable of being seen for more than 20 miles in clear conditions. Operated by 3 full-time lighthouse keepers, alongside a 4th on rotation for shore leave, the station was considered a critical installation for maritime safety. The isolation of the assignment was absolute. With no permanent residents on the island, communication limited to flag signals and scheduled reports, and supply ships only arriving once every 2 weeks. Life on Eilean Moor demanded discipline, mental resilience, and a tolerance for solitude. Those chosen were usually seasoned seamen, men capable of weathering not just the literal storms, but the psychological toll of prolonged isolation. By the end of 1900, the keepers stationed at Eilean Moor were Principal Keeper James Ducat, First Assistant Thomas Marshall, and Second Assistant Donald MacArthur. All were experienced and respected in their roles. Ducat was methodical and composed. Marshall, a capable and steady second. MacArthur, older and known for his fiery temperament, was a tough, battle-worn man from the mainland, a former mariner who had seen more than most. But something intangible, seemed to unsettle even these hardened men. December 15th, 1900, the last confirmed sighting of the keepers. From passing ships, the lighthouse beam continued its steady sweep across the dark, rolling sea. All appeared normal. It wasn't until December 26th that alarm bells rang. The relief vessel Hesperus, delayed by poor weather, finally reached Eilean Moor with supplies and a replacement keeper. As the ship approached the island, Captain James Harvey noticed something amiss almost immediately. It was custom for the keepers to greet incoming vessels with signals from the dock. But on that day, the landing platform was empty. No figures in oilskins, no movement, no smoke from the chimney. The lighthouse flag, which should have been flying high, was missing. An eerie silence hung in the air. Captain Harvey ordered a landing party ashore. What they discovered only deepened the mystery. The door to the lighthouse was unlocked. Inside, nothing appeared broken or ransacked. The lamp was freshly cleaned and filled with oil. The beds were made. A set of oilskins hung neatly on their pegs, except for one, which was missing. The clock on the wall had stopped. On the table, a meal had been laid out: salted meat, boiled potatoes, pickles, all untouched. The chairs were overturned as if someone had left in a hurry. Then there was the logbook. The entries, written by Thomas Marshall, began on December 12th. He recorded an exceptionally violent storm that had battered the island, with winds so fierce they threatened to shatter the lantern panes. He noted that James Ducat had grown strangely quiet, deeply unsettled. On December 13th, Marshall reported something even more disturbing. Donald MacArthur, the most hardened of the three, had been seen crying. For a man like MacArthur, that was deeply out of character. The final entry, dated December 14th, read, "Storm ended. Sea calm. God is over all." After that, nothing. But here's where the facts become more elusive. No storm was recorded in the area at the time the men wrote of violent weather. Ships sailing in nearby waters on those same dates reported calm seas and clear skies. Weather logs from the mainland corroborated those conditions. So what did the keepers experience on Eilean Moor that others did not? Was there some hyper-local meteorological event? Or were they seeing something that defied explanation? The official investigation, conducted by the Northern Lighthouse Board, concluded that the men had been swept away by a rogue wave. Perhaps, they theorized, a sudden squall had forced two of the keepers to secure equipment on the landing platform, only for the third, MacArthur, in a panic, to rush out to help without donning his oilskin. But that explanation raises questions. Would all three men abandon the lighthouse during storm conditions, especially without keeping at least one man inside, as protocol demanded? Why would MacArthur, an experienced seaman, venture out in shirt sleeves? And why was the lighthouse left unlocked with a meal ready and uneaten? The rogue wave theory, though plausible on paper, feels too neat, too convenient. In the decades since, alternative theories have flourished. Some suggest an altercation, a fight that spiraled out of control. The remote location, the pressures of confinement, and the psychological strain could have sparked a deadly confrontation. If one man died, the others might have perished trying to rescue or cover it up. But there are more esoteric theories too. Strange lights were reportedly seen in the skies above the Flannan Isles around the time of the disappearance. Could the men have witnessed something unnatural, something that caused panic or awe? And then there are the legends. Long before the lighthouse was built, Eilean Moor was regarded by locals as a place of spiritual significance. Ancient stories spoke of beings that inhabited the island, spirits or entities tied to the rocks and sea. Some islanders avoided it altogether, calling it cursed. Could these stories have any bearing on what happened? Were the men victims of some ancient force, or simply their own fears? Today, the lighthouse remains, automated since the 1970s, its light still sweeping the sea as it has for over a century. But it now stands as a monument to the men who vanished without trace. Visitors to the island, rare though they are, often speak of an odd stillness. Some say that on certain nights, when the wind is high and the sea restless, you can still hear voices on the breeze, the cries of men lost to time, whispers carried from beyond the veil. Perhaps the truth of what happened lies beneath the waves, forever unreachable. Or perhaps it lingers in the mist, just waiting to be seen. Until then, the Eilean Moor Lighthouse remains a symbol of one of the most enduring maritime mysteries of the modern era. A mystery that, to this day, remains unsolved. The mystery of the Derbyshire Triangle. Though the term Derbyshire Triangle doesn't appear on any official maps, the territory it describes is unmistakable. Stretching roughly between Buxton in the north, Matlock in the south, and Bakewell to the west, the triangle encompasses some of Britain's most rugged countryside. It's a landscape carved by ice and shaped by time, craggy escarpments, deep caves, windswept moors. But beneath that scenic beauty lies something far stranger, a pattern of disappearances, a concentration of aircraft wrecks, and sightings of the inexplicable. Some say the land is cursed. Others believe it's something even more elusive, a window into another reality. The Peak District is no stranger to folklore. Long before modern sightings, this land was feared and respected by those who walked it. Prehistoric stone circles dot the moors. Ancient burial cairns still stand on high ground. Roman legions once marched through its valleys, and medieval legends speak of phantom riders and will-o'-the-wisps. The idea that the land itself might retain memory, residual energy from centuries past, is not new. But it's in recent decades that the truly strange reports begin to stack up. Perhaps the most disturbing pattern in the Derbyshire Triangle is its long and tragic history of aircraft crashes. Since World War II, more than 50 planes have gone down in or near this area. Some during war, yes, but others during peace, in clear weather, without explanation. One of the most well-known crashes occurred in 1948, when a Dakota C-47 military transport plane plummeted into Bleaklow Moor. There was no distress signal, no mayday, just silence. The wreckage remains there to this day, twisted, rusting metal scattered across the peat, a ghost of its final flight. Pilots have long reported that compasses behave erratically in this region. GPS signals flicker, instruments fail, theories abound, from magnetic anomalies to subterranean rock formations interfering with navigation, but others believe these are symptoms, not causes. And it's not just aircraft. Walkers and climbers have gone missing in the Derbyshire Triangle for years. Some are found, days later, cold and confused. Others are never seen again. One such case occurred in 1998, involving a man known only as Tom. A seasoned hiker, Tom had spent years exploring the Peak District. He set off one afternoon from Edale, heading towards Kinderscout, a route he knew well. He never returned. Although an extensive search was conducted, nothing was discovered. There were no items of clothing, backpacks, or footprints found. His last known location? Right in the center of the triangle. These cases are unsettling enough. But even more disturbing are those who vanish for hours, or even days, and return with no memory of where they've been. One such witness is David Holroyd, who in the 1970s was hiking near Castleton when something inexplicable occurred. "It was strange," he said years later. "The air, it changed. Everything went silent, and then this white mist rolled in, thick, cold. The next thing I knew, I was standing miles from where I'd been. My watch was 2 hours ahead." David experienced what many now refer to as missing time, a phenomenon where individuals suddenly lose hours of their lives, with no recollection of what occurred in between. Psychological dissociation? Possibly. But these stories often include physical disorientation and inexplicable relocation. Could they be experiencing time slips? Brief fractures in reality where time folds in on itself? Then there are the lights. In 1997, a Derbyshire police officer driving near Monsall Head spotted something hovering over the valley. A black triangular object, silent, immense. It hovered briefly, then accelerated upwards at impossible speed. "It wasn't a plane, it wasn't a helicopter," he reported. "Whatever it wasn't ours." Other sightings describe orange orbs hovering above Mamtor or drifting over Stanton Moor. Lights that split, rejoin, and vanish. Aerial phenomena that defy modern understanding. And these reports aren't isolated. They span decades, reported by hikers, campers, drivers, and even military personnel. Skeptics suggest natural causes, low cloud layers creating optical illusions, sudden weather shifts, disorienting topography. The Peak District's geology can indeed distort magnetic readings. And accidents happen, especially in such rugged terrain. But these explanations only go so far. Believers argue that the Derbyshire Triangle is more than the sum of its strange events. It's a focal point, a place where reality becomes unstable. Some believe the area contains interdimensional portals, temporary gateways that open under specific conditions. Others believe it's a site of extraterrestrial surveillance, chosen for its remoteness and geological properties. And some believe we are simply witnessing the early signs of phenomena we have yet to understand. Whether shaped by ancient energies, visited by something beyond our skies, or warped by the fabric of time itself, the Derbyshire Triangle holds its secrets tightly. To some, it's just a stretch of English countryside. To others, it's a place where people vanish, where time bends, where lights flicker in the sky and are never explained. It remains one of Britain's most chilling mysteries, and if you ever walk its paths alone, you may not come back the same. The Enfield Poltergeist. The year was 1977. The setting, Enfield, North London. More specifically, a modest council house on Green Street, occupied by Peggy Hodgson, a single mother, and her 4 children, Margaret, Janet, Johnny, and Billy. They lived a quiet, ordinary life. But everything changed on the evening of August 30th. That night would mark the beginning of a chilling series of events that would span more than a year. It began, as these stories often do, with a sound. A strange, rhythmic knocking. It came from the walls, the ceiling, seemingly from nowhere and everywhere all at once. At first, Peggy Hodgson believed it was a prank, kids being kids, nothing to worry about. But then the girls screamed. When Peggy rushed upstairs, she witnessed something that defied explanation. A heavy chest of drawers sliding across the room, moving slowly but deliberately, as though being pushed by unseen hands. When she tried to push it back, it refused to budge. Then came the knocking again, louder, more aggressive, and it didn't stop. The family fled the house in terror, seeking help from their neighbors. That night, the police were called. Among them was PC Carolyn Heaps. She searched the property thoroughly. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary until she saw it herself. A chair slid several feet across the living room floor. No one had touched it. Her official statement verified the event, but she could offer no explanation. Word spread quickly. The media descended on Green Street. Headlines questioned whether the house was truly haunted or if this was an elaborate prank. Either way, the public was fascinated. The Enfield case had become a national obsession. Soon, the Society for Psychical Research, known for investigating supernatural claims, sent 2 of its most experienced members to examine the case. Maurice Gross, a former inventor turned paranormal investigator, and Guy Lyon Playfair, a journalist and author, arrived at 284 Green Street expecting to find a simple case of mischief. What they found was anything but simple. Witnesses, neighbors, police, journalists began reporting the same things. Furniture thrown across rooms, toys flying through the air, sudden temperature drops, and inexplicable knocking sounds. But the most terrifying phenomena all seemed to focus on one person. Janet Hodgson, just 11 years old, appeared to be the epicenter of the activity. She was frequently thrown from her bed. On multiple occasions, she was seen levitating, and perhaps most disturbingly, she would speak in a deep, gravelly voice, one that didn't seem to belong to her at all. The voice called itself Bill, and it claimed to be the ghost of a man who had died in the house years before.
Just before I died, I went blind. And then I had a hemorrhage. And I fell asleep. And I died in that chair.
Skeptics dismissed the voice as a ventriloquism trick. But when researchers traced the claim, they discovered a man named Bill Wilkins had indeed died in the house. His son later confirmed the details of his death, exactly as the voice had described. How Janet could have known this remained unanswered. Photographs from the period seemed to show Janet being lifted into the air, her body stiff, arms outstretched as though suspended. Critics argue she was simply jumping, and the photos caught her mid-leap. But others remain convinced. The raw emotion on her face, the sheer volume of witnesses. If it was a performance, it was a masterclass. Not everyone was convinced. Some accused the Hodgsons of faking the whole thing, perhaps to escape their difficult financial situation or to gain attention. In later interviews, Janet admitted to faking some incidents, but insisted the vast majority were real. Even Playfair, one of the chief investigators, acknowledged they had caught her trying to stage activity on occasion. But he also said, "You don't fake 2,000 unexplained events." Skeptics, meanwhile, point to poltergeist phenomena being linked to adolescent stress or emotional trauma, particularly in young girls. Perhaps this was a case of psychological disturbance, not the paranormal. But despite the debates, the case remains stubbornly unsolved. By 1979, the activity began to fade. Whether the entity left or simply went dormant is unknown. Eventually, the family moved on. Some reports indicate that subsequent occupants experienced unusual events, but these were not as significant as previous occurrences. To this day, 284 Green Street remains one of the most talked about haunted houses in Britain, a place that inspired books, documentaries, and even fictionalized portrayals in films like The Conjuring 2. It's a story that divides opinion, but those who lived through it are in little doubt. Was the Enfield Poltergeist real, a clever hoax, or something more complex, something between the worlds of psychology and the supernatural? One thing is certain: whatever happened inside that house left a mark. On the family, on the investigators, and on the cultural memory of a generation. And decades later, we're still talking about it. The Devil's Footprints. The setting is mid-Victorian England, a time when industrial progress walked hand in hand with superstition. The railways had arrived, but so too had ghost stories. Science was advancing, but not enough to explain everything. In the isolated villages of Devonshire, old beliefs still clung to the edges of people's lives. It was in this climate that one of the strangest mass mysteries in British history unfolded. On the morning of February 9th, 1855, residents from towns and villages such as Topsham, Dawlish, Teignmouth and Exmouth found strange tracks etched into the snow. They were cloven, roughly 4 inches long and 2.75 inches wide, and spaced about 8 inches apart, as though left by a bipedal creature. Yet they bore a distinct, hoof-like shape. But the most unsettling aspect wasn't their appearance, it was their path. These prints moved in a dead straight line, regardless of terrain. They were reported to have crossed rooftops without pause, scaled high garden walls, vanished at the edge of rivers, and reappeared on the opposite bank as though no time had passed. In one reported case, the prints were found leading directly up to the front door of a house, then continuing out of the back door as if the entity had passed through solid wood. It was not just one isolated sighting. Dozens of villages reported the same phenomenon. Church records, private letters, and local newspapers all captured the eerie consensus. Something had stalked Devon that night. Initial speculation focused on animals. Could it have been a badger or a donkey? Perhaps a kangaroo escaped from a traveling menagerie, as one clergyman suggested. But these theories quickly collapsed under scrutiny. No known animal could travel in a straight line for such a distance. Nor could any creature leave tracks so uniform and persistent, or apparently navigate obstacles like rooftops and narrow fences without disturbing the snow. The idea that it was a hoax was also difficult to accept. The sheer scale of the footprint trail, spanning up to 40 or even 100 miles by some estimates, would have required dozens of people working through the night, traversing inaccessible terrain in freezing conditions without leaving any trace of themselves. And crucially, The footprints were found in areas that were, at the time, inaccessible by road or foot without great difficulty. Some of them were discovered in gardens enclosed by high walls, or across the tops of narrow stone walls, where no human could walk without falling. The footprints, impossibly, continued. As panic spread, so too did the stories. In Dawlish, a group of residents claimed the tracks led into a haystack, but there were no tracks leading out. When the haystack was dismantled, nothing was found inside. In another village, the prints were seen going up to the edge of the River Exe, then continuing on the far bank, as though the entity had either walked across the water or flown over it. Local clergymen were quick to connect the phenomenon with scripture. They reminded parishioners that the devil, too, could walk the earth. The fact that the tracks resembled a cloven hoof, long associated with demonic imagery, was not lost on the fearful populace. Newspapers across the south of England picked up the story. Letters poured in to editors from concerned citizens. The Illustrated London News even ran a piece on the mystery. And while the press eventually moved on, the people of Devon did not forget. Theories have abounded in the centuries since. Some are scientific, others supernatural. One naturalistic suggestion is that a group of hopping rodents or birds could have created the pattern. A hopping wood mouse, for instance, can leave paired impressions in snow that resemble tiny hooves. But again, the vast and consistent range of the tracks makes this unlikely. Another theory points to weather phenomena. It's been proposed that atmospheric conditions caused unusual snow melting or cracking patterns. But no such phenomenon has ever recreated the depth, symmetry, or vast coverage of the 1855 event. Others speculate that a large balloon, perhaps a weather balloon or even a military test device, broke free and dragged ropes or chains behind it, striking the snow in hoof-like patterns as it moved with the wind. An interesting idea, but one that fails to explain the precision and linearity of the tracks. And then, of course, we return to the original explanation, the devil himself, or at the very least, something that walked unseen among the sleeping homes of Devon. What makes the devil's footprints mystery so enduring is not just its strangeness, but the breadth of its documentation. Unlike many folklore legends, this wasn't a single tale passed down orally. It was a shared event, recorded independently by dozens of witnesses across a large geographical area. The prints were seen, measured, traced, and then just as suddenly they disappeared. No repeat event has ever matched its scale. No conclusive explanation has ever stuck. Even today, some locals still speak of that night, recalling the tales that have been told through the generations, forefathers waking to find tracks outside their doorsteps, of the eerie stillness in the air, of the sense that something had passed through, not just through snow, but through the veil that separates the ordinary from the unexplainable. The Devil's Footprints remain one of Britain's most peculiar unsolved mysteries, a tale suspended somewhere between folklore and fact, where the footprints of fear march through history and where belief, disbelief, and wonder all walk together. What left those tracks? We may never know. But if you ever wake to fresh snow outside your door, take a moment, look closely, and remember Devon, 1855.